Thank you. Okay, today we're going to start on 119, Kufya test. 3 lines from the top. Thank Hashem, table for entire every day. Supposed to be learning, we should have this new Daf immediately. Learning Lila Nishma, Seven Gold of Asparach Ben Yamin, and Salat Ben Mitzin, and Rosh Leima for Aben David Ben Sarah, and Scali Betzalel Ben Fig's Fire. Okay. The Gemara starts out, Amar Mar, Master Tod. This means that it's quoting a brisa that we mentioned but we didn't explain, and now we're going to go back to explain it. The brisa that we quoted said we had 3 opinions. We had the opinion of Rabbi Yoshia. He says that the Eretz Yisrael was divided based on 600,000 that left Egypt. Each one of them got a portion. We had the opinion of Rabbi Yonasan. He says that Eretz Yisrael was divided by those people that came into the land of Israel. Then we had the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Shimon ben Elazar says it was divided by both. Divided into 1,200,000 portions. And each one, those that left, those that came, it was divided. Everyone got a portion. Then the brisa continues and says the Meraglim, they didn't get a portion. Yeshua and Kaleb took their portion. Mislainim and Adas Kairach, which we said that went together, they didn't have any portion at all. That got reabsorbed into the big pot. Habanim, the brisa finished. Natlu b'schus avi aviyam or b'schus aviyam esim. Habanim. So back to us. It says Habanim is the Amar Mar, Master Tod. Habanim, the children of the Meraglim, the children of the Mislainim. How did they get a portion in the land of Israel? It says Natlu b'schus avi aviyam. They took a portion in the merit, not in the merit. I guess it means they took their father's their father's portion. Schus sounds like in the merit. Right. It means that's the portion that they got. Or because of their mother's father. We're talking about the children of the spies, what portion they had in the land of Israel, because the spies didn't make it in, and their portion went to Yeshua and Kaleb. Very good. So what about their children? So it says, well, it could be that their grandparents had a portion and they inherited that portion. Okay, Tanya. Problem is, we have another brisa that says B'schus Atzman. Says they got their own portion when they entered in, the children of the spies, the children of the complainers. Why couldn't they have their own portion? Especially if we're following the opinion here of Reb Shimon ben Elazar that you get when you enter into the land of Israel, right? So they should have their own portion. Where it says like kasha. It depends which opinion you go like. That's an easy way to answer the contradiction. If you say that they follow, that if you say that how was Israel divided by the 600,000 that left Egypt, each one of them got a portion, then these people didn't leave Egypt. They were only born later in the desert. If you say, how did they get a portion? So they got a portion based on their grandparents, because they inherited from the grandparents. Their fathers died. If you say that it was based on the people that entered the land of Israel, so they entered the land of Israel and they got their own portion. Very easy answer. Iba Yasema, we could say another answer. Everyone holds that you get a portion based on entering into the land of Israel. And how will we resolve this? For like Kasha, this is still not a question, because it depends on their age. If they were 20 years old when they entered into the land, so then they would get a portion. When 20 years old and they don't get a portion. The Rashbam points out a very interesting thing in the math. It says, what year were the spies sent? They were sent in the 2nd year. So if they had children, they would be 38 years old. I mean, the youngest. They couldn't have been younger than 38. So what do you mean they were under 20? They have been under 20. He says we're talking about the grandchildren. Oh. It says Banim, it means B'nai Banim. Grandchildren could be called banim.
No, it has nothing to do with how long they were. The fact that they couldn't be under 20.
How does the Gemara say that they're under 20?
The only
So we're talking about the grandchildren. Okay. This is in this long Rashbam towards the end of it. Banim diktani hainu bnei banim. Okay. Next Gemara. Which opinion do we go by? You? Huh? Why?
Because either you do 2 counts of the ones that left and the ones that entered, or you only give the coupons to one of them. Well, that entered. No. Either the ones that left.
We have 3 opinions. Okay. Either ones that left, one that entered, or both. What's wrong with either one?
What's la halacha?
Oh, we don't do halachas on things that are passed already. We don't pass the things that happen.
But there's no like final opinion of which is the right one.
No.
That stinks.
Yeah, well, no, it's the opposite. It stinks when we have to have a final opinion. They say they don't like that. There's no halach.
About it.
The logic of every opinion is correct. Question is, in which world it's correct in? You know, Ilam this, Ilam that. Everything is correct in the higher world. So over here, we don't have to resolve it because it's not relevant. We only resolve the things that we have to actually do. Yeah. Remember, they said help them find the right one. It's above Basra volume 2. Had this discussion if Entebbe was considered a miracle, a raid on Entebbe, if that was a miracle. So there's different opinions. We held it was, but the people that said it wasn't. So anyway, they wanted to find out someone's opinion. They said, "What should I do when I get there? Should I say a bracha of Shas and Nes b'makom hazeh?" So when you get there, can you call me?
Yeah, exactly.
Call me collect. Okay. The next Gemara says, "V'shaya b'chaneitel pi shnei chalakim." Now we're going back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that Tzlafchad had only daughters, right? And the daughters of Tzlafchad are going to end up getting 3 portions in the land One portion was the father's portion. That's Tzlafchad's portion because he left Egypt and he got a portion, according to that opinion. And they also get a portion because Chefer, the grandfather, died, and he left his portion over to his sons. And the Mishnah then finishes off that Tzlafchad was the oldest son of Chefer, and so not only does he get a portion of Chefer, but he gets a double portion of Chefer. So now the daughters of Tzlafchad get 2 portions from Chefer, 3 portions. Right. So 2 from Chefer and 1 from Tzlafchad. Yeah, 3 altogether.
So not sure. Would this be that both of them exited Egypt? So
they both left Egypt, right? Right. Yeah. So now the Gemara says, well, you don't. You see, I just need to clarify that even if you hold that it goes to, it's only by Yaretz, but still it has to go back. It has to go back. Even that opinion holds that it goes back to those that left, and then it gets re-inherited. The question is, what goes back? I'm sorry. It could still line up with the other opinion here. So the Gemara says, why does he take 2 chalakim? Why does he take 2 chalakim? Now, you already know the answer to this because we learned the Gemara yesterday. The Gemara doesn't know the answer right away. It says, Ramai Roihu. He didn't get the portion yet. Didn't get the portion yet. They only get the portion when they go into the land. That's when they actually inherit it. A Bechor shouldn't take a double portion unless that property is already in the possession of the father. Anything that comes later, they split equally. The Bechor, the firstborn doesn't get the double portion on money that comes later. Yeah.
And that is the halakha today.
Right.
Yeah, that is the halakha.
Right. So the question is, why was he getting to Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel b'Yesodei Sayel, and Rav Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. Rav Yehuda is a student of Shmuel. Later on, he was by Shmuel. First, he was by Rav. He answers the question. He says, we're talking about metaltalin. We're not talking about a portion in the land. They got a double portion, not in the land of Israel. They got with the pegs of the tents that they had in the desert. The personality, he took a double portion of that. It's totally not what we're talking about. It's like a Masav Rabba has a question. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda said before, we learned this yesterday, that the Bnei Slavcha got 4 portions, because it says that the children of Menashe got a total of 10. There were 6 children of Menashe, and then there was, and then plus the 4 portions of Tzlavcha. We said there was 2 brothers that they inherited from also. Whatever the case is, in the pasuk it uses the term Chevle Menashe Asara. Chevle is what you use, is a term that you use when you're measuring land. Use a rope to measure land. So it's obviously talking about land. You're telling me it's talking about personality, the pegs of the tents that they inherited. No, we have a pasuk that says, and the way we explained it was that it was the daughters of Tzlafcha got this extra portion from Chefer, from the firstborn. Elam Rabba, rather Rabba says Eretz Yisrael Mechzekesi. We have to say that Eretz Yisrael was already considered owned by the people that left Egypt. It wasn't that they got it later. It wasn't like dividends that show up later to the estate. No, they already owned it, and that's how they were able to divide it up in a way that the firstborn gets a double portion. Yeah. Already to the people that left Egypt. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question on Reb Chidka. Reb Chidka says, now I think the way this works is Shimon HaShikmuni. Is that the way it's pronounced? Let me look at your go a little further. Yeah, Shimon the Shikmanite. Shikmuni. Okay, I don't know. Is there a comment in there on about personality or something?
Yeah. He's the sage, one of the students of Rabbi Akiva, is mentioned last here. He's also mentioned in the Halachic Midrash. He's known by the name of the city Shikmona, a Mediterranean coastal city mentioned in Mishnah, and also in other sources. Shikmona was so near to the city of Haifa that it eventually merged with.
It merged with Haifa. We'll have to put it on our itinerary.
Jaffa is also.
Well, Jaffa's. So Reb Chidka says like this: Shimon HaShikmuni hayali chaver mitamidei Rabbi Akiva. He was a friend of mine from the students of Rabbi Akiva. But I was curious about was if he was one of the ones that passed away, because we don't really have any names of the students that passed away.
The names of the ones that survived.
Right. We know the names of the ones that survived, and he wasn't one of them. Unless there was another one that they didn't tell us. Came later. I don't know. Yeah, I need to drop more information before I make any assumptions. So he said like this: Moshe Rabbeinu knew that the daughters of Tzlafchad were going to inherit. His only question was, they're going to get a double portion from Chefer because Tzlafchad was the firstborn. So there was a detail in there that he didn't know. He knew the general. See, Moshe Rabbeinu has to go back to ask Hashem what's going to be the law with Bnei Tzlafchad. We're on Kuf Yates. And it should have been written, the whole portion should have been written by Moshe. But because the Bnei Tzlafchad were so righteous, they merited that their names get mentioned in this halacha that they asked, and then it was brought, and then Hashem answered them. So they were involved in this. That was their merit. And the Rashbam adds in, how did he know this? Well, first of all the laws were taught already in Mara. Even before the Torah was given, they already had these laws. And this would be included in Sham, Sam, Loi, Chayku, Mishpat. Right? This would be included in the laws of monetary laws that were taught back then. And Rashbam adds in one more point. It says the second to the bottom line in the Rashbam. What would happen if Kairach didn't rebel? What would happen? You know, if the spies came back, well, like the Torah would have been different, but the Torah, what would have happened?
There's a that the Torah was written as the word.
Yeah, very good.
It was revealed to them. It was very much more. Or it's just it wasn't revealed to them because they would have no choice.
Right. It says that we would have had all the mitzvahs the same. We would have had all the mitzvahs. What would we have done with those stories? I don't know. There would have been. I read somewhere in the Sefer Maral Tzintz. You ever heard of that? Maral Tzintz. I had a small sefer. He wrote a lot of svarim. I don't have them, but it had a small sefer over there. He said that the letters of the Torah would have been reorganized to say all the letters of the Torah would be there, but they would have been restructured. But the Torah would still be intact, even if Kairach didn't rebel, and even if this somehow it would have different permutations or whatever. Okay, they have these games. They give you a few letters, and you have to try to make as many words as you can. Okay,
How
so
do you know the daughters' names?
we know them. The Torah says mention them several times.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Very interesting here. It explains that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't consult with Hashem about this whole situation because he deduced it from evil, and the daughters and Shlomo also had to deduce it from evil. So I
Right.
guess
Right.
Moshe Rabbeinu went to Hashem like for confirmation.
No. That was exactly what the Gemara is saying. Is that Moshe Rabbeinu knew all of it. And the question was, does he get this first double portion of Sefer? That was this question. And another point, once we're saying this, we know Moshe Rabbeinu knew that the Makashish gets the death penalty. Shenemar, as it says in the Pasuk, anyone that violates Shabbos gets put to death. So what was the whole question? He has to go back to Hashem to ask. It says, he didn't know one fine detail. He didn't know which death penalty was it. Was it stoning or was it strangulation? Really, it should have been, the halacha should have been said straight, directly. But because of the guilt of the Makoshesh, so he ends up getting mentioned in that halacha. That what is it? Skila. Lamdacha, this teaches us violation of Shabbos. Skila. Stoning. That a merit.
There's a source of the Gemara for this statement.
There are other sources for it. Shabbos Lamed Beis over there has a whole list.
I don't understand. Like, if you're gonna say that Moshe Rabbeinu knew the whole Torah, then why didn't he know this detail also?
Yeah. Why do you have to say he knew the whole Torah? He knew the laws that were taught in Mara. And these were the laws. There was this detail about the punishment of this and about the Bechira regarding Eretz Yisrael. You get a you get a double portion. Those details he didn't have.
So that's not part of Torah Shebechtav?
It became part of Torah Shebechsav. It would have been written anyway. How do we put this? Would have been written anyway, even if it's lafka, but because their story happened, so we gave it to them to put it in. Like it's put in with their
The naming.
I read a Purish on this that had a different point of view. It was interesting. It said when the daughters of Selefchad added the phrase, and he was not part of the rebellion of Korach, Moshe Rabbeinu felt he had to disqualify himself as a judge.
Oh.
And that's why he went, because Purish said this is no more difficult a question than many questions that came to him, but he felt he'd been.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. Nice one.
Like two things that were.
Rashbam says that was to keep him humble.
Oh, that's the Rashi on the Parsha.
Rashi and Chumash says that it was to keep Moshe humble.
Oh, it's two things that were like, not revealed to him and keep him humble.
Do you remember that? The Rashi says that the two things that weren't revealed to Moshe was to keep him humble. I don't remember that detail, but
humble because this
Let's look it up.
This alma meaning that's a humbling experience.
Right.
I remember something about that because
I'm sorry.
like when you hit the rock, right? Something like when you hit the rock, so, oh, you think I can get the water out of this, or that we can get the water out of this rock. So then because of that, he was then later, there was something that he didn't know.
Right. Yeah.
That was this.
Even above Bechlal, Kas, Balachlal, Tas. Tzlafchad, what's the story of Tzlafchad? That was in Pinchas, we need it by Midbar. And the story of the Mekaishish was in, where was the story of the Mekaishish? Is that in the end of one of the parshas in Vayikra? Is it Vayikra? Kaishish was in no. The one that collected wood on Shabbos.
That before or after?
I think it might be also there.
Okay. But the Kravna b'nei Slafchad ben Chefer, but Tameidna avinu meis b'midbar. Okay, so Hashem speaks to Moshe. Let's see. Yaakov Moshe's mishpatan l'fnei Hashem. The law was concealed from him. He was punished because he took the crown by saying anything that matter which is difficult for you should bring to me. Oh, so that's what you mean, that it was to humble him because he said that. That's what you meant. He assumed authority by saying that any difficult thing you bring to me. Okay. I don't know if it's to keep him humble now. That sounds more like a punishment. Now Rashi says that this was fit to be written through Moshe, but the daughters of Tzlafchad were married at B'nichtal Yadan. Okay. This was a long question. Rabbah said that Eretz Yisrael was already owned by the people that left Israel, right? So it says Visal Kadai Taharit Shal Machzekasi, Micah Masavkalei. What was Moshe Rabbeinu's question? You told me that there was another. You think another one?
Right, Tmeim Lenefesh.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah, maybe that's where it says it. Maybe it's by the Pesach Sheni. Does it say something similar over there?
Is
Rashi says. Here's another one, Pesach Sheni. It's interesting, he left this out. Pesach Sheni, you have the same thing over here.
sure.
Okay, let me leave that open because it's going to come up in a moment. The Gemara answers this question. It says, if Eretz Yisrael was already owned by the people that left Egypt, so what was Moshe Rabbeinu's question? The Gemara says, he had this is exactly what his question was. Yeah, what happened over here was that the Gemara was asking a question. If you already know the answer, that Eretz Yisrael was owned by the people that left Egypt, so of course you're going to get the firstborn. It's going to get a double portion. It's considered muhsek. It's not considered rai. It's considered already in possession. So what was Moshe Rabbeinu asking? The Gemara says no. That's what he was asking. If it was rai or if it was muhsek, that's how we know it because we have the answer. This is sort of like the parking spot, right? Yeah, it says I'll give all the proceeds of the business deal if I find the parking spot. I'll give it to tzedakah.
Got it.
So then a spot opens up and he pulls right in. He says, "Don't worry, I got my own spot." Right. So we're saying like, what was Moshe asking? If we already have the answer, no, we have the answer because he asked the question. Now we have the answer. It says because his question went like this. The pasuk says, "V'nasati oiseh lachem me'rasha ani Hashem." I will give it to you as an inheritance. Me'rasha means an inheritance. Ani Hashem. Now me'rasha is a participle. It could be a noun and it could be a verb. Participle means that it could take takes part in all the different tenses. Okay, so Mayrasha could mean that it is an inheritance, or it could mean to tell you, not that it is an inheritance, it could mean to tell you that it's going to be inherited but not bequeathed. So which would mean like this. Yerushahi me'avisechem doesn't mean that it is an inheritance. Or does it mean that they bequeath this opposite? They bequeath it, but they don't inherit it, which means that it's a prophetic term that they're not going to make it into the land of Israel. They're only going to pass it on, but they themselves won't get it. So it says like this. Pashtale, and the answer to that was Tarvayu. It's both. It's going to be an inheritance, which means that it's considered theirs already. And the Bechar, it's an inheritance from the fathers. That means that the fathers already have it, even though they didn't get it, but it's already considered theirs. That means that it's a muhsik, and the firstborn will get a double portion. And it also means Marishin Beina Yarshim, that they're only going to pass it on, but they themselves won't inherit it. Behind the ksiv, and that's what the pasuk also says, Tiviyemai, Vesita Emai, Bahar Nachlasva. Will bring us in. What does Vesita Emai mean? Bahar Nachlasva. Like plant?
No, that
implant. Bring us in, not bring us in, bring them in, and plant them on the mountain of your inheritance. Doesn't say Tiviyenu, doesn't say bring us. Tiviyenu lainemar ela tiviyemai. Rather, it says bring them. Malamed, this teaches us.
The time was.
You
was
bring
that
them.
a taste? Tom?
I think it means to implant or something.
But how do
Malamed.
how do you?
What's the shirish?
Yeah, stop.
Like neta. Is like planting.
Uh-huh.
Missing none. Or maybe it's missing good. None, probably. It's one of the Shirashim that loses a letter. This teaches us that they were prophesying when they didn't say bring us, that they actually weren't going to make it in. This was said in the song by the sea, that generation would actually die and only their children would make it in. To be a mai, mean to bring them. Okay. This is of Zion. This is the daughters of Tzlafchad bring their question to Moshe, but the way it says it is they brought it to Moshe. It says that they stood. This is verse 2. They stood before Moses, before Elazar the Kohen, before the leaders of the entire assembly, at the entrance of the tent of meeting, saying, "Well, the Gemara says like this: After Amdu Lifnei Moshe, is it possible that first, in other words, the order over here of the names who they asked the question to is problematic? Is it possible that they stood before Moshe v'layam alem davar? Moshe doesn't know the answer; he doesn't say anything. V'amdu Lifnei Nesiim, so they go to the Nesiim, to the princes, and then they don't say anything. And then then they go to the entire congregation. You know, Moshe didn't know this. Let's see, maybe one of you guys know this. So, is that possible? It should be the other opposite. Rather, you have to displace the pasuk and you have to put the order differently. So why was it said like that? Well, they didn't want to mention anyone else before Moshe, so they mentioned Moshe first. But the way it happened was first they asked the congregation, then they asked the Nesiim, and then they didn't know, they asked Moshe. Okay. That's the words of Rabbi Yeshua. Abba Chanan Amar Misham Rabbi Eliezer. Abba Chanan says in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, no. The Beis Medrash sayu yashvim. Everyone was sitting in the Beis Medrash. And they went in front of all of them. They asked them all together. And now the reason why it lists the name like that is because it says Moshe first, because Moshe's name would obviously go first if they were all there. It says they were all there. Not that they went in order, but it was the opposite order. No, they asked the question once, and they were all there. But my kamifag, what's the machlekes over here between Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Chanan? Marsavar, the second opinion holds Rabbi Chanan Cholkin covered the Talmud b'makam Rav, that even though Moshe Rabbeinu was there, but nevertheless, it's not disrespectful to Moshe Rabbeinu to mention that there were other people there. They asked it to all of them together. You're allowed to give respect to a student in front of the teacher. Mar Savrein Chalkan. Rabbi Yeshua says that's impossible. Moshe Rabbeinu was there. They would say that we asked the congregation, they asked the Nesiim, we asked Moshe. You would just say Moshe. You couldn't mention anyone else. It must be that they asked first the Nesiim, they asked first the Yeda, and then they went to Moshe. Otherwise, you wouldn't be allowed to mention anyone else. Yeah. Machlekes, if you're allowed to give kavod to the student if the rab's there. V'hilchasa, what's the halacha? Here we're allowed to have halacha. The hilchasa chalkin, that you're allowed to give respect to the student in front of the teacher. The hilchasa and the halacha is also ein chalkin, that you're not allowed to give respect. Isn't that great? Now you find the halacha, you get two opposite halachas. Kasha hilchasa. Now there's a contradiction. Is it yes or is it no? So the Gemara says, it's not a problem. It depends. Does the teacher respect the student? If the teacher himself would give respect to the student, so then everyone else is also allowed to give. If the teacher doesn't give respect to the student, then everyone else shouldn't as well. Moshe Rabbeinu, according to Rabbi Abtil, according to Abba Chanan and Rabbi Lezer, and then Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Eliezer, Moshe Rabbeinu gave respect to the entire congregation.
Weren't Yoshua and Elazar punished severely for asking and then Yoshua answering question in front of Moshe Rabbeinu? Like he became childless because he was like Chayav Misa for answering a question.
That by Eldad and Medav, what was that? When did he answer? You remember when that was?
They didn't answer in front of them. They were.
I don't think it was a Bayalda man.
Where was it?
I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
But I thought that was a halacha that you're not allowed to answer a question in front of your Rav.
Right. You're not allowed to answer a question in front of the Rav. Question is, do you mention their names as if you asked all of them? They're not answering.
Oh, okay.
They're not answering them. Yeah.
Maybe it was not to ignore the meeting. If they were there present, maybe they mentioned everyone.
Yeah. It's saying that they were present, and that's giving respect to them. And well, do we give respect to the student? Yeah, I think in Shulchan Aruch this is quoted: if your teacher is the student of this other teacher, are you allowed to give respect to your own teacher in front of your teacher's teacher?
Make the teachers.
That depends. That's a machlekes. Are you allowed to do that? Yeah. Who is Abba Chanan? Not sure. Remember, who was the one that they came to him to ask for rain, and he didn't answer them because he was a worker? You remember that story? He lifted up his garments when he walked through the thorns, but he wore his shoes when he walked in the water. Remember that? He didn't answer them because he was a worker. He wasn't allowed to interrupt his work. I'm not sure if that was Abba Hanan. Oh, well, okay. All right.
Very few people just name.
Okay. Yeah. Look, the people like the Manis Friedman's Chevra, Lipsker, Shalom, they would come to the Rebbe. They would think like their teacher is like, it's like somewhere up there, But in front of the Rebbe, everyone was nothing. It was like a little hard for them. It was like, no. So, but in front of the teacher's teacher, he didn't give respect. In front of the Rebbe, he didn't give respect to these rabbis, teachers. He didn't give respect to them. They're just one of the crowd. He just pushed along with everyone else. Okay. Tana, it was taught in the Brisa. They were wise. Darshanias ein. They could teach. They could derive teachings. Tzidkanias ein, and they were righteous. Chachmanias ein. How do you know that they were chachmanis? They were wise. Shalafisha dibra. They spoke up at the right time. Damar Shmuel bar Reb Yitzchak. Damar Shmuel bar Reb Yitzchak. Shmuel bar Reb Yitzchak says, "Malamet shei Moshe Yoshev v'Doirish b'Parshas Yevamah." Moshe Rabbeinu was teaching the laws of Yevamah of Shenemar. It says, "Keshvach achim yachtov," that if two brothers are sitting, one of them passes away, and without children, so the living brother, should marry his widow, right? That's the law of Yevamah. Amrullah, they said they went to the shir. They did the women back then did the Daf Yomi with Moshe. And they said, Im keben anu chashuvim. They said like this, that if the brother passes away and he has no children, so then they do yibam. But if he has a son, you don't do yibam. And the same halacha applies if we have a daughter, you don't do yibam. Says, hey, so a daughter is just like a son. So if we're considered like a son, so tenu nano nachla kabensa, give us an inheritance. But the law of yibam is someone should take over the inheritance of this deceased brother. Right. And that's what happens. The brother that marries gets his inheritance, right? If there's a son, then the son takes the inheritance. If there's a daughter, so hey, the daughter should take the inheritance. If there's no yibam, then give it to the daughter. It's very logical. Bim lav, and if we don't get the inheritance, so tisyabim imenu, then our mother should do yibam. It's not going to help them, but at least let her do yibam. Miyad, so immediately, Vayakam Moshe is mishpatel t'nei Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu brought their question, their law to Hashem. Darshani is saying, what does it mean that they were able to darshan? It says, they said, Ilo hayolai ben leidi barnu. If there would have been, our father would have had a son, then we wouldn't have spoken up. Now, which means that they already knew the halacha that if there's a son, that the son gets the inheritance and not the daughters. And so okay, so they understood that halacha. They understood that drasha. But Tanya Bas. Okay, now this question, the Gemara itself doesn't have an explanation for what this question means. You have another brisa that says if he would have had a daughter. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Sami mikan bas. You got to erase this. This doesn't make sense. What do you mean if he had a daughter? He had 5 daughters. Abayah says, no, you don't have to do that. Afilu hayabas leben lady barnu. They knew so much
that if their
they
daughters,
knew
that they had us.
If there was a son that died and had a daughter, they knew. Remember, we had this whole discussion before. Does a daughter inherit together with the son's daughter? Remember that?
Yeah.
We had this discussion with the niece. Does the daughter inherit with her niece? Because if the niece is in there, why should, if the niece inherits because of the son who inherits its father, the direct daughter for sure. They knew that that's not true. And that's their darshaniyas. Okay. Tani, Tzidkani is saying, what does it mean? The righteous they only married someone that was fit for them, which means from their tribe. Now, what really comes out over here is that they were allowed to marry anyone that they wanted, even not from their tribe, but they didn't do that. They married only from their tribe. You know, that halacha that we learned that first generation, they had to marry from the tribe seemed to be set up just for the B'nai Tzlafchad. They shouldn't lose their inheritance. But it says in the pasuk, it says, L'toiv beinayim, to anyone that they want, they themselves were allowed to marry anyone, but they didn't do that. Right. Should we leave it right here? Tani Rebbe Lazar, Yaakov. In your Gemara, is that a new piece?
You want to move next page?
No. Let me just
Yeah,
see over
yeah,
there.
it's a new piece.
You're saying it's part of the same piece. Okay, let's stop over there anyway. And okay, tomorrow. When do we stay up all night? When do we stay up? Is that tonight?
Hi.
We say till at
At 1 o'clock. Be there.
So tomorrow, what time is Shachris tomorrow? Is there 6:30 or do they daven later?
I think
It's going to be tough, but maybe we should learn the regular time. 5:30.
not tonight.
let's call it for the regular time right now. If well, on the chat we'll say if it's going to be. We'll change the time, right? And let's do tomorrow 5:30. Okay.
It does? Are you getting up at 1? Well, then it
Okay.
doesn't work.
That'll work.